Welcome to the Starting 11. Will West, Chris Carroll. This is All 3 Points, our shorter show on Thursday. I am Will West alongside my co-host Chris Carroll, Carroll Sports Academy's FC National here in Knoxville, Tennessee. All right, point number one, Chris, let's just jump right into it. Semifinal matchups. It was Argentina 3-0 over Croatia. And just in your opinion, what happened in that match that Argentina was able to run away with it so quickly?
Hey, Will, how you doing, mate? Well, it's I think it's a shame. Croatia will obviously want this back. I think they'll be really disappointed with the first goal. They were hanging in there. It was, well, not just hanging in there. It was an pretty even game. And then they got just done straight down the middle for the penalty, for Messi's penalty, when the keeper had to come out one-on-one and had to clean him out. It was a penalty, but they'll be really disappointed, the Croatians, how simple that ball through and how loose they were down the middle. So obviously, once Argentina go ahead, then it's psychologically it's just difficult to get back into it. Argentina are up. Messi's having a field day. He's looking like he's enjoying himself. Young Alvarez is, to be honest, it's the first time I've watched Argentina at length. It's the first time I've been able to watch them at length, and I was really impressed with them. It wasn't just the Messi show. They're strong through the team. Alvarez looks on fire, and then it went from bad to worse for Croatia with the second goal with Alvarez from a Croatian corner of all things. That's a bugbear of mine. You get a corner, you send all the big boys up, and then you take it short, and the ball never gets in the middle, and then it ends up in the net at the other end. So yeah, and then what a goal for the third one, Messi's run against Guardiola. He did him, and it's 3-0 and all over. But I think the first goal really sealed it, and Croatia would really love to have that back.
Yeah, I think that the first goal, that you're right, that was just kind of bonehead. At the end of the day, it was a simple ball in and just a boneheaded play that ends up with a penalty. But from there, am I wrong that was just world-class players making world-class plays in a big moment, right? That's what it kind of seemed like. And honestly, I don't know that there have been a ton of those in this tournament. Overall, it's been when you get a goal, you kind of had to earn it. It isn't just one guy smokes everybody. But I thought the final two goals for Argentina, especially the last one, was just Messi's run was unbelievable, and he just broke down that entire defense. Again, I don't think I've seen a lot of that in this World Cup so far. So against a team like Croatia that we look at as far as their shape is always solid, you know what you get from Croatia. They're going to bog things down and grab and hold. I can't help but wonder on that third goal, maybe if the defender wasn't trying to hold as much as he was and wasn't trying to grab, hold, and be physical and just frustrate Messi, maybe he doesn't get beat like that if he stays in front of him. But instead, he tries to get maybe psychologically get into him or grab and hold and things like that. And it led to Messi just being able to blow directly by him and create that third scoring opportunity. But really what I thought the difference maker was here was world-class players on Argentina's side taking advantage of a very, very, very solid team that just frankly didn't have the talent to be able to hang with them.
Yeah, and a normally solid team that make that. Yeah, that's just that one mistake that can just kill you. And that's what happened. They're normally so solid. Up until that goal, I was looking and thinking they were looking a bit wide open at the back. They didn't seem very compact. The left defender also, he seemed to be leaving big gaps between him and his central defender as well. And so it looked like it was just a matter of time. And then the world class kicks in. Of course, you got world class players. They get an opportunity like that, then they're in it. But then they really did turn it on. And Alvarez with his goal that came from the Croatian corner, the one that bobbled around, and he runs, a good length of breakaway, good length of the pitch. You know what? He plays for Manchester City, but he reminds me of a small Haaland. He can score. It looked like a Haaland goal, just power straight down the middle, and then his tap-in looked like a Haaland goal as well, just finishing off a move. Interesting that they play for the same club, and
it's completely
different statures.
Yeah, I was going to say, of course, he's a 22-year-old at Man City. As for those of us that are EPL fans, right? So, as if they don't have enough of a wealth of talent.
Yeah, really. Oh no, they're just lined up, ready to go. Yeah. So yeah, he did. He reminded me of Haaland, and look, he looked world class. He worked so hard. He didn't just put the ball in the net. He was running back, putting pressure on their defensive midfield players, and really earned it. I was very impressed with Argentina, and Messi's looking comfortable. He looks like he's really enjoying himself again. He's looked miserable in the world international games for so long. Oh, it's good to see him. Good to see him at his best.
You asked the question Monday, if Messi wins this World Cup, is he the greatest of all time? Did anything change for you in that semifinal matchup?
Yeah, as far as the current era, it hasn't changed. He would. I think that settles the argument with him and Ronaldo. I think Maradona. It's close between him and Maradona. Different eras. I still think the way Maradona got kicked in the air. I think what he achieved, he'd still take it for me.
And the other matchup, France tops Morocco 2-0. Really, I thought that this has been really a cup in a tournament that's been about the team as much as anything else. But it just seemed like, am I wrong to look at these two matchups we had in the semifinals and say, well, just world-class players versus non-world-class players, and that was the difference maker in this one. But not that Morocco has a bad club, and not that they don't have a lot of guys that can play at a top tier of soccer in Europe, but it just seemed like they were outclassed as well out there.
Well, I think this was more even. And I think Morocco would be, if there's one team that does have a regret in the semi-finals, I think it's going to be Morocco. But they'd really love this one back. The first goal so early, and the defender, again, usually so solid. They have been so solid, so organized. The central defender gambled. He went for that ball. If you go, you've got to make that, and he missed it, and they're in behind him. And then there was chaos, and of course, a scramble goal. Good finish in the end. But yeah, but for that, they weren't in trouble. In fact, they were. The thing about Morocco, the other thing I think they'd like to have back is a few chances they had. They had quite a few chances around the edge of the box, and they just seemed reluctant to shoot. Lacking a world class. To your point, lacking a world class finisher. Great team, but that one mistake just did them, and then. The second goal at the end just was the nail in the coffin. But I think if they hadn't have conceded so early, I think it could, because they did go for it. I think it could have been different. But hey, that's ifs, buts, and maybes, and it was a mistake. And then world class teams who feel like they belong and should be there, then they're happy to they'll beat you, and that's what they did. They made them pay.
One thing I thought that France, just a team that when you make a mistake, because I think there have been other matches that I've watched with Morocco throughout this tournament where a mistake happens here or there, and it's fine. There's someone behind them that can make that up, or the ball breaks in the right direction. I thought they faced a team that when you make a mistake against, they crush you. And that's something just the difference in the skill level that France has. The other thing I thought that was a little different, did you think there was hesitation on Morocco's part on the attacking end? Or like when it came to the counterattack, because that's one thing it felt like throughout this entire tournament. Morocco on the counterattack was free flowing. You know what I mean? They were incredibly aggressive, and I wondered, was the moment kind of large for them, and was the pressure looming the way that it can in a match like this for a country like that, the first time an African country's ever made the semifinals? I just wonder, were they a little bit too hesitant with things? And especially maybe after conceding that first goal where you took a chance, maybe you didn't want to be nearly as aggressive as you had been throughout this entire tournament.
Yeah, I think maybe it dawned on them where they were all of a sudden, that they were on this world stage of the semi-final, and you know what, that where they looked so confident and comfortable up until that point. They did, like I said, they seemed reluctant to me. They wanted to walk the ball in the net. They had opportunities 2, 3, 4 times, and then they take an extra player on, and you think, just let it go, because if you don't shoot, you don't score, you know. And yeah, I think they'd really like to have it back. They did great. I mean, the injuries to the defense that they suffered over the World Cup was unbelievable, and despite that, they still did really, really well. They lost 2 other full centre backs during the game. So despite that, yeah, they missed an opportunity, and France made them pay.
And that's another part of it too. When you're a team like Morocco, you don't have the depth that a France might have, or that, you know what I mean, that England, that France, that Belgium, that some of these other teams have in Europe that have been there before, that have, you know what I mean, their second team can start for, you know, would finish top 4 of the EPL if you just played their second team. Morocco doesn't have that once they start dealing with these injuries. It's just eventually attrition's going to get the best of them if they deal with those injuries, right?
Yeah, it's a long tournament, and I think it was Sace, the centre back. He started with an injury. He came off in the quarterfinals. He started the semi-final injured, obviously, and then he came off. something like halfway through the game, you know. So they were down to the bare bones anyway. And so, yeah, their lack of depth caught up with them in the end.
All right. So point number 2, Chris, today, your final matchup. We got the big the ginormous made for television matchup in France versus Argentina. How do you see this one going?
Well, it's a great matchup, isn't it? And France didn't look so fluid in their semi-final, but we know they've got it there. They've got it in them. Argentina really impressed me, to be honest with you, because I didn't realize how what quality and how solid they were as a team. I thought they were going to be more reliant on Messi, and this is going to be a good one. It's going to be. I'm really looking forward to the game. I think Argentina are going to take it. I'd like Argentina to win it. I think it'd be good for Messi. I'm usually one for like, hey, whatever, you know. But I think Argentina are going to win this one. Yes.
Yeah, I think France is going to win. I'm hopeful that Argentina is going to win. I would like to see this spread out a little bit. 2002 is that the last time we saw a South American team win the World Cup. So it's been a little while, 20 years. I would like to see a South American team do this, and also France going back to back. Well, it'll be a great story for France. That is not compelling for anyone else outside of the nation of France. Am I wrong to look at this one and say fullbacks? This matchup's going to come down to which fullbacks can stay in front of their mark, right? Who stays in front of Mbappe, who stays in front of Messi, and you don't let them break you down or create a goal, or where someone gets beat and then you have to break your shape, and all of a sudden you've left someone open, an Alvarez or someone like there, a Giroud open over the middle.
Yeah, the pressure is going to be on the defenses, and we talked about earlier on about mistakes in games and being costly, and I think especially an early one, because it's going to be so crucial getting that first goal, as it is in most games, but it's so crucial getting the psychological advantage, the upper hand. And when you have got that opportunity, if you get your nose in front, one up, and then you've got that opportunity where you don't have to leave yourself thin by pressing too much, and you can sit back a little and pick your moments when you attack, then that's going to be important. But it's going to be down to the defenses. They're going to be under a lot of pressure. It potentially could be a really, really good game, this one.
Hey, it's the first time we've ever had 1 and 2 in the Golden Boot matchup. That kind of contest come down to 2 players who are playing in the finals. How do you see that one going? Is it going to be Messi or is it going to be Mbappe?
I hope it's going to be Messi, just because. I've not been a huge fan. Wouldn't wear the shirt with the Messi name and all that kind of stuff. But for what he's done for the game, I think who'd begrudge him? Who'd begrudge him that? Mbappe's got plenty of years ahead of him, and I think Messi said it's his last tournament. So just for the romance of the game, I think it'd be good for him. But you're asking an Englishman here, it's like pick your poison, which France and Argentina. After historically what Argentina did to England, we're still on over it, and France, our neighbours just across the English Channel, there's a bit of history with that one too. So, but I think Golden Boot. I think it'd be good to see. And Messi, he seems to be on a roll. Messi, he seems to be fluid and enjoying himself, and I think he'll just nick it.
And Messi's one of those guys that I don't know. Like I've seen this throughout my life when it comes to all sports, where when a guy's older, then maybe someone I didn't like when they were younger, but I had to respect how great they were. Once they got older, you kind of wanted to see them be able to win, and you want to see them pick up more hardware, and you want to see them have more victories, because you just kind of that it's the days are waning, and we're not going to have that much longer with Lionel Messi. I mean, there's a lot of reports he's coming to he's coming to the U.S. And let's be honest, when you come to the MLS and you're an all-time great player, that means you're taking a kind of a victory lap at the end of your career. And if that's what Lionel Messi's about to do, then this is the last time we're going to see him in the World Cup. It may be one of the last times that we see him on a huge stage as well, being able to and so to be able to see him hoist a World Cup, I think would be fantastic, and it would be a fitting end of the elite portion of his career, because I've got to tell you, he still looks fantastic out there and looks like he could play anywhere in any league in the world.
He does, and it's been missing the last few tournaments, and he's looked like he's just he has underperformed, and it looked like he's had no space and time, but he's making his own space and time now. He just looks like he's in control. Looks like he's toying with the defenders, and that the defense Gvardiol, who's been getting a lot of his World Cup. He's had a great World Cup, and he's a young 20-year-old defender, I believe. And a lot of clubs interested in him now. He made him look, he made him look like the young lad he is. And he was saying, look, this is how you do it. You stay there. I'm the star, and see you later. So yeah, it will be it's a good send off for Messi, and he's playing with a bit of freedom. And I'm like I say, I'm pleased. You got to be pleased for a guy like that. He's never done it. He's never been controversial. He's always seemed to have a decent attitude. You could argue with Ronaldo about how he's finished his career, but Messi, it'd be his nose is clean, and who'd begrudge him the good send off?
And I will say this too: that Argentinian team they're young, so that's my one concern that I have, and probably the reason why I'm picking France to beat Argentina. Outside of Lionel Messi, it's a lot of guys that are 23 and younger. And so that's the one concern that I have. And maybe part of that's watching the young players for England in the Euros last year, watch them just, let's be honest, choke in the big moment. And I do wonder, as well as they played in the semifinals, I would think that this moment's not going to be too big for them. But you can't help but wonder if it's really, really, really tight. Who makes a mistake? Is it going to be the grizzled veterans, or is it going to be the young guys that are surrounding Messi right now?
That's a good point, Will, actually, because France have been there and done it, and we've talked about it on the shows leading up to this point, that the French look like they belong. They've been there, they've done it, they're comfortable, they're comfortable being the elite players they are, playing for the elite team, and they're the holders, they're the champions, so they should have a swagger and they should have a confidence. These young players, you're right. Even Messi, on the stage he's on now, he'll be anxious, perhaps. But the young lads, it's different. A final to a semi-final is completely different. So, you don't know how they're going to react. Will they be because they're young? Will they just play carefree like some young A-listers? The A-listers play, and they don't care what stage it is. But that could be the undoing. Because France won't be concerned at all. They'll be comfortable being in that final.
Point number 3, Chris. Gregg Berhalter. A lot of U.S. men's national team fans calling for his firing or resignation after kind of the dust-up that happened with Gio Reyna. And for those of you that didn't see it, Gregg Berhalter spoke to some type of symposium and company, and he mentioned a player anonymously that he had to punish and threaten to send home that was a world-class player, and that the player didn't play a lot during the World Cup. Well, reports from MLSsoccer.com, reports from The Athletic say that player was Gio Reyna, who didn't play a lot during the World Cup. Now, I'll ask you, is this enough between this and the other issues that they've had with other players on this team? Is this how big of a intrusion and a betrayal is this? We've seen former U.S. men's national team players saying he betrayed the locker room when he did that with Gio Reyna, and he broadcast that news out publicly. He was thinking he's doing it to a small group and says he thought it was going to be off the record, but it ends up that everybody in the United States actually finds out about this news. Is this a fireable offense for Gregg Berhalter, or do you think that this, coupled with everything else, should lead to them looking to replace their manager?
He's not helped himself, because we know there's nothing off the record, or you should assume there's nothing off the record. Somebody's got to have it in for you and put it on the record. So he was very naive there, naive at best. I think the coach Berhalter, he hasn't helped himself. First of all, in my opinion, the first mistake he made was you select a player and then tell him before the World Cup started, I'm selecting you, but you're not going to play much of a role in this. I think limited role was the words he used. Well, of course, that's hardly, you're not going to motivate a player that way, are you? So, I think if he's been injured, his playing time's been limited in Germany. He's just getting back to fitness. He's had 2 or 3 games back to back, perhaps not full games, but you pick the guy and you go, look, let's build into this. You never know what's going to happen, and you give the guy some confidence. So that was his first mistake, in my opinion. And there's been a number of players who've done that. Kyle Walker of England, he didn't play. He was just come back from injury. He didn't play the first game or 2, and then he was ready after training, and he was ready to go. So that could have been Reyna. He could have done that because he's he scores goals. And that's the problem for the US. They're not scoring goals. So why you'd say that to him in the first place, I don't know. The player's going to be down. How he handled that, the player, wasn't professional. And I think he let his players down. He let his team down with his attitude in training and what have you. And then one thing leads to another. If a coach says whatever happens in the locker room stays in the locker room and we're not going to discuss it, then he shouldn't have discussed it. If he doesn't say that, then he's open to discuss it, and the player's foolish for acting the way he has. But it was a knock-on series of events, and it was all started by him telling this young lad that yes, you're gonna go, but you're not going to do much.
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed to this, pointed to the issue with Weston McKennie missing curfew and then having to be suspended for a second, and dealing with some punishment there, as that maybe he's been like that he's lost the locker room or he's not the leader for the locker room. I would also say this before we get into any of that, he's not very good, and he's never been particularly good. The U.S. they try more crosses than 3/4 of the teams in the World Cup, but their percentage is incredibly low, even though they have a number of guys that actually have really high percentages at the highest levels of European soccer and world soccer that they could have had on. If what you're going to do is try a bajillion crosses and we're going to have pressure and possession, then what you don't have shots. And this has been the problem with Berhalter, and it was my concern when they brought him in. Is okay, pressure, possession, but you have the third fewest shots in the entire of the 32 teams in the World Cup. Like how their shot percentage, I should say, per match. How in the world can you do that? And so for me, he's just not good enough to begin with. The second part about it is if you also then have an issue with players, then what are you doing here? It's not the Berhalter family's birthright that they get to run U.S. soccer for the foreseeable future, because you have the brother who's one of the heads of MLS, and he was a head of it. He was I think that's the chief marketing officer for U.S. soccer when Berhalter was hired. His son plays for Vancouver in the MLS, and look, he hasn't failed. So I'm not saying he hasn't failed, but you can't watch the U.S. men's national team and not think there is a completely different gear they can have. We're trying to put square pegs into round holes and fit these players into the manager's system, as opposed to the manager making sure his system fits the players that he has best. It just seems rigid. It seems like he's Mourinho without the hardware, and he's ripping his players publicly. He's fighting with his players, and he's Mourinho but with a sub 500 career record as a manager.
Yeah.
Now, positive things he's done. He's beaten Mexico 4 times in a row. He did qualify for the World Cup. They won the Gold Cup. So there are things that he's done that's been positive. So I don't know that you just fire a guy, because we've also seen a lot of times that second cycle, World Cup cycle, is where you see a team take another step. But if you don't bring someone in to help Gregg Berhalter or work with him on getting better in the attacking side of things, they spend a ton of time in the attacking third, and they don't put shots up. Why not? And look, I get it. Josh Sargent is not Harry Kane. I understand that completely. They don't let Christian Pulisic is not Lionel Messi. I understand that, but you have talent. And I think the team the results weren't underachieving. The play absolutely was. And unless Berhalter's willing to change what he does, that's the conversation I would have is, look, you've got problems off the pitch and in the locker room with your players. You're alienating great young players for no good reason and then outing them and kind of, I hate to say stabbing the locker room in the back a little bit, but it looks like I have not been in a soccer locker room, but I'll tell you, in a football and a baseball and a basketball locker room, that would be stabbing your team in the back. And he's also not very good, and you're not getting the most out of the players that you have. And this is the most talented group of American players as far as the number of players who are playing across Europe and in the top leagues around the world. We've never had this many American players that are playing there, and you're just not getting enough out of them right now.
You're right. He did make strange decisions. Yes, he got them to the World Cup, and that's great. But when you're at the highest level, the biggest criticism or the biggest issue for the US is scoring goals at this highest level. You got Reina there, who, let's say, is half fit, who's good, could start, could turn a game. The other guy, the other player that I didn't see, that I was expecting to see play more, was Aronson, who's lights. He plays for Leeds United in the Premier League. He's on fire. I've been so impressed with him. He's full of energy. He scores goals. He's an absolute pain in the backside to defenders because he's all over them, and he links up well. He can, in my opinion, he can do it all. He's one of those players that can do it all. He's infectious, and he was coming on in second. It was after 70 minutes, 60 odd minutes. He was coming on. He didn't start a game, And it's just strange to me. And I saw Alexi Lalas. I think it was after the first game. Was it the Wales game? And no goals. And Lalas was saying, "Why didn't he bring Rayner on? Where's Rayner?" And he was furious about it, because it was the obvious go-to. It was the obvious, it may not have worked, but you've got a great forward sitting there on your squad. You've told him he's not going to be playing much. He's fed up. You're not playing someone else who plays for Leeds and scores goals in the Premier League and plays well on a regular basis. And it's like you're persisting with guys who aren't doing it. And
you're playing a bunch of MLS players. Let's be honest. You're trying to play a bunch of MLS players against the best players in the world. And good dang luck with that.
Yeah, really. Yeah, so he didn't cover himself in glory. Yeah, add that to losing the dressing room and saying one thing and then coming and talking about it. If you win the World Cup, you can do what you want as a coach. If you don't, you've got to be careful. I think his time, he's on thin ice. I think he's done.
Okay, again, it's Mourinho without the hardware. And so what do you have if you have Mourinho without the hardware? That's just a guy that doesn't know how to work with people. And look, Berhalter, there are things he's done well. So everyone just crushing him, saying he needs to go and things like that. There are things that he's done well that you have to weigh. But if he's not willing to, the question you have to ask yourself if you're in U.S. soccer and you're one of the higher ups is, are you willing to change? And if the answer is no, then he's got to go. And if the answer is yes, I am, and you bring in a quality assistant that can work with him, because it isn't like, look, the last 4 managers before this one also made the World Cup. So it's not like we're going to throw him a parade just for making the World Cup. We mentioned this earlier in the week, Chris. They did not overachieve. So all they did was do what they're supposed to. So while I appreciate what Berhalter did, he didn't fail. But me getting out of bed this morning, putting on pants and going to work, and you know what I mean, is not an achievement. And that's kind of the way I look at what the U.S. men's national team did during this World Cup. They did what they were supposed to, the minimum of what they were supposed to, and he did that. And so you can't take that away from him that he's a failure. But that if you're watching these matches, there's a completely different gear that they have. Can they win it all? I don't think so. But could they have made the quarterfinals this year if they'd have gotten everything together and the draw would have gone right? And maybe they could have. So why in the world would you just accept, I don't want to say subpar, but 80% of what you're capable of just because this guy and his brother are big wigs within U.S. soccer? Sorry for my rant, Chris. I apologize there.
No, you're good. And you've won me round, to be honest with you, because knowing what was going on now, we didn't know this was going on in the background. And this is so now I'm angry. It's so infuriating.
Well, you're a U.S. citizen now. You get to be angry, right?
I am, yes. I've got a right to. So I've earned it. But for this to be going on, for a coach just to be appears to be so stubborn to tell this guy he's not going to play, he could have been for a great coach can change his mind. A great coach can make it look like it's his fantastic decision all along, and he should have played the guy. He could have gone, look, you know what? I told you you're going to be limited. Here's your chance. He could have got the coach out of jail. He could have got the team out of jail, and everything could have been completely different. But it looked like the coach was stubborn, and just his approach was completely wrong with the player in the first place. And it's so infuriating. It really is. That he was just, the answers were there, the players were there, and for whatever reason he didn't want to change it. So I'm furious about it. Fire him.
That's Chris Carroll. I will West. Remember, we have the full show starting 11 coming up on Monday right here.